Hi everyone, this is John D. Relay, and we're continuing our series on how to set up our rates in the system. In this video, what we're going to talk about is how do we deal with these individual date ranges that might be deviant, that we kind of want to control a little different or match to our current pricing. There's a few ways that we might do this. So I have this example pulled up, and in this example, just like in our last video, what I've done is I've gone through and adjusted my low season to be a little lower. I've also made some adjustments to bring the spring up here. And there's a few places that we may want to go and make adjustments to the rates. So the first one is looking at these two periods right here, these holiday periods. Wheelhouse is seeing something a little different. Maybe my decision is that I, want to hold the rate a little bit higher. I could look and take a look at, last year situations and see if there's any information in my historical data that would maybe give me a better idea of how I would want these positioned. Looks like these weren't actually booked for those dates. But let's say I just want to go in and maybe match my pricing a little closer. One way that I can do this is let's take this range from the 19th to the 5th. I could use this demand sensitivity setting and kind of up the model to impact these dates a little bit more strongly. We could do the same thing here as well. So the 18th to the 24th. So the first thing I'm going to do with this demand sensitivity, which is a setting which makes it so that whenever Wheelhouse recognizes demand, it basically adjusts how much it's going to act on the system. The first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go here to this rule-based. And when I go to rule-based, it's going to default this back to 0. So you can see it's basically flattened out all the demand on my model. And I'm going to go ahead and set this back to 100 because that's the standard. Now, what I can do is I can maybe pick some specific date ranges that I want to happen. So if I pick this, we'll go ahead and do this Thanksgiving range here, 18th to the 24th. So I can go here to this date specific portion, and I can go ahead and map this range, 18th to the 24th. And maybe I'll just double that. We'll double how sensitive we are to the demand on that date. Now I'm going to just scroll up here and look. Looks like we're quite a bit closer. Maybe we want to go a little bit up. That might be fine. It might be that I've traditionally priced this a little too high. So you can use the Wheelhouse information to inform the decision you end up making. By putting it at 300%, I'm pretty much matching this here. Maybe I decide I want something in between because it wasn't booked last year. But I still want to hold something because it's a little early and I don't want to have to talk to the owners about it. Those are an option. Now, maybe I want to do the same thing here as well. 19th to the 5th. I could map those dates. Now, this is a pretty interesting one because this is a date range that, unlike Thanksgiving, which moves around every year, this one's going to be the same. So maybe I'll just have this roll over and I'm just going to put in a number here, 300, and let's take a look and see what that does. So it's pushing it up a little bit. We're pretty low on the demand scale here, so maybe I need to just go quite a bit higher if I'm trying to match it. You can see that I can bring that up. I don't need to make it exactly. If I'm trying to force it to be exact, there's another way we can do that. But you can see that I've pretty much now matched that shape, and that full line is pretty fitted here. Just by using a few extra settings. Now, one other thing that's really helpful about this demand sensitivity is because these are percentages, if you find that you're seeing kind of a similar trend and you want to adjust these same areas, this is a very easy setting to copy and paste to other settings because it doesn't require you to put in the actual values. You only have to put in these indexes to get an idea of what it is you're trying to do. Now, I'm going to delete this Christmas one real quick and show you another method that we could use to control the pricing over these dates where we've really, you can see in the rate plan, the pricing has been set really intentionally. If I go down here to the minimum prices on the left, I have a few other options, and they're going to look very similar to the demand sensitivity. If I pick this 19th to the 5th period again, I can go to date-specific minimum prices, and go ahead and just put in those dates. We'll roll these over again. I know that there's a slight adjustment here, but I'm just going to put in one of the values because I don't want to take too much of your time today. So that's at 280 observed price. We'll just put 280 right here. Then we'll go take a look. So you can see now where before the model is floating the rate up here and it's pushing it up based on the demand, we're actually just controlling the rate. We've put in a minimum. This minimum isn't going to come off. You can see that my recommended price is still underneath it, so I still know what Wheelhouse is doing. But at the end of the day, the rate that's going to be posted is this rate here. So this is another really interesting way to control these prices. I would use both of these methods to deal with kind of occurring or important events that you know always occur, that your owners are aware of, and you just have to have control of the pricing. The reason being, if you put a bunch of random kind of dates where you're not sure why the demand is that way, it'll get very hard to manage. The other thing too is these are dates that you're already paying a lot of attention to. So, as part of your daily revenue management, you're going to be paying attention to these dates. So even if it's controlled, you have an opportunity to kind of intervene on it once we start to get more information about how this is actually going to perform this year. Now, there is a third way that we can use to adjust these, and this method of adjusting rates is actually also very good for dealing with differences in the short and medium term. You'll remember in our last video, I mentioned that we should differentiate between temporal differences and structural differences. Structural differences are the things that you want to kind of occur year over year. So in this case, I brought down winter. I always want it to be a little lower than the Wheelhouse model is probably doing. I brought up spring because I want it to be a little higher in general, all the time, year over year. I did not use seasonality to bring down these rates in the short term because maybe I understand that the market's higher. I may have manually in my own rate plan adjusted these rates to try to get additional dates booked. And that's something I would call a temporal decision. Certain event dates might also be temporal. We may also, we know this is a holiday, but maybe I don't know what this is or what this is. It's not something that occurs every year. It's just a demand date that's occurring this year. That might be a change that instead of putting in as a minimum or as demand sensitivity, I actually want to go ahead and go to the calendar and adjust those dates directly. So in the short term, what I might do is just select the dates and just go ahead and drop the rate by a certain percentage. I can get an idea of what those rates are going to be, fit the line a little bit closer. Maybe I need to go down a little bit more because I can see on the graph that this is quite a big difference. And if I go ahead and save that, now I'll have a rate adjustment, but it's not going to happen every year. It's only happening on those specific dates. I can do the same thing for any date that I kind of want to tweak in the future. One thing I do advise doing if you're taking this method of adjusting the pricing is make sure you double check this before you go live. You may be doing this much earlier, so maybe we don't have to deal with this because you're not going to turn these listings on for another couple weeks. You may also want to just double check to see how the model has changed before you turn these on. We can go ahead and go all the way over here to that December period. We could select those dates and essentially do the same thing here too. This is another method that could be used for both temporal as well as non-temporal kind of rate adjustments if you're just trying to tweak the model. Now, one last thing when making these rate adjustments to accommodate for specific days is if you use the calendar method, keep in mind we will show you that there is a way to do this in bulk. So if you're consistently seeing like, hey, across the whole portfolio, this rate is, over Thanksgiving is a little low, rather than doing it listing by listing, I could go to our tape chart and actually just adjust all of these at the same time. So any calendar changes can easily be done in bulk. On the settings side, demand sensitivity is very, very easy to apply to other listings. All I have to do is set it up on one, and because these are percentages, I can copy it to every other listing, so it doesn't take a lot of work to do this in bulk as well. With minimums, it's a little bit more difficult because we actually have to put the values in, and you may have, even though the trend is the same, we're always a little bit low here on Thanksgiving than I want to show, we have to actually put in the specific values for every listing. If that's the case, please contact our team and we can discuss uploading that so it's much faster and easier for you to get all the information in that you need. Thank you.